After more than 30 years of service as one of the Navy's top aviators, Captain Mitchell is where he belongs, pushing the envelope as a courageous test pilot and dodging the advancement in rank that would ground him. Training a detachment of graduates for a special assignment, Mitchell must confront the ghosts of his past and his deepest fears, culminating in a mission that demands the ultimate sacrifice from those who choose to fly it. What book is this, you might ask? Is this Tom Clancy? Is this... No. Joke's on you, everybody. What, pray tell, is this sorcery? It's Friday, and Steve and I, Steve Donoghue, our esteemed book critic, of course, are here, and we are talking about the kind of books that have to be projected on a wall.
Yes, we're inaugurating a little feature here, talking about movies that are in the library system, and I want to justify it in two ways. One is that this is the CPL radio book of the day. We can occasionally throw the emphasis on the L in that, which is the library system, which has more than books. We celebrate that we have more than books. Plenty of movies for your consideration.
Actually, Steve, we have a library of things, and we have an air fryer. You want to talk about that next week?
Yes. Oh my God. Well, the second thing would probably rule out an air fryer video, and that is that I have done a huge amount of written movie reviews in my life. I have been on newspapers, websites many times where I have felt behooved to review a movie.
As a fan of your channel,
I have credentials along those lines.
You do, and as a fan of your channel, you have a perspective that there's a vast array of movie reviewers on YouTube, and just who aren't Rex Reed. And
there was an old school of movie reviewers.
Yeah.
There was an old school. The last flicker of it was Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah.
And even they were working mostly for our very dumbed down audience. But there was an old school of movie critics, and I learned the craft from them. So I have been told that my movie thoughts feel a little different. They sound
do, and
they can be objectionable.
Yeah,
but they sound a little different. I don't know what that is. I think it could be the main difference if you're used to YouTube movie bros, is that when I'm certain of something, I'm certain of something just the same in a movie as in a book. Indeed. Whereas they're all saying, I don't know. Here's a word from my sponsor. I love this mattress company. Forgetting the fact that their wide-angle shot of their bedroom shows clearly that they don't use that mattress. It's a competitor's mattress in the frame. And if you tell them that, they'll say, cash a check, dude. Already cashed a check.
Well, we both have used today's mattress. That is the Top Gun Maverick mattress. And just some background. I mean, outside of the 1987, blockbuster.
It's unbelievable that we're talking about this.
It's kind of wild.
2023, we are talking about a sequel to a movie that came out in the 1980s.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this one, by the way, did extraordinarily well, too. In fact, some would say that this was the savior of the hardtop cinema. The cinemas were limping along, and this movie came along, and the tills did ring.
Yeah. It grossed 10 times its production budget.
Yeah.
Now, there are a whole bunch of reasons that we could put forward for that. What we're talking about here, for those of you who don't know, is Top Gun Maverick.
Top Gun Maverick.
The sequel to Top Gun, with starring Tom Cruise, from the 1980s. He plays the exact same character, Pete Maverick Mitchell. And to make the sequel more believable, Tom Cruise has put in the extra mileage of not aging in between the first movie and the second movie, which is a little eerie on its own and probably deserves a movie of its own.
and he's older than both of us.
he's older than anybody. He was in he was there before the talkies, which with his voice is a benefit. But his character, Maverick, older. Of course, this is movie land, so he's not 40 years older, but he is older. And he's no longer the tower buzzing iconoclast from the first movie. He was constantly being told by his superiors that if you keep doing this, if you keep throwing out the rule book, you'll be broken. You'll never amount to anything.
Which I told you on one of last week's shows.
It turns out that's not true. It turns out that you can do a lot of rule breaking without being broken and have your career ruined. Maverick did it and is one of the brass, minor, but still one of the brass in this movie.
Yeah.
There's a certain general who has thoroughly advocated the military overthrow of the government and the installation of a Christian theocracy. When asked under oath, do you support the peaceful transfer of power? He said, I take the Fifth Amendment. an open, naked traitor to the United States. He hasn't lost his rank. So it's possible. Those threats back in 1986 were probably a little overblown.
Yeah.
And we have a fairly standard Hollywood plot here.
Very.
You can't make Maverick the hot young gun anymore. So the movie has stuffed its roster to the gills with hot young guns. There's Miles Teller. Miles Teller is supposed to be the young Tom Cruise of this movie.
Certainly.
That's bewildering to me as a choice. Miles Teller has the acting range of a plank of wood and is wildly hated in the industry. He keeps getting work, but because he's well connected, and because he vaguely looks like a leading man. But he's one of those rare actors who when you hear that they are hated in the industry, you believe it the minute you see them on screen. He has that rarest thing, negative charisma. You see him and you hate him. You don't want him to succeed in the role. Tom Cruise is a genuine movie star.
Yeah.
One of, I believe, easily the greatest movie star alive today, and one of the greatest movie stars in history. And as we've said, that's not the same thing as being a great actor.
Right. And arguably he's our last. Arguably he's our last movie star. I've seen it thrown out there that who else?
Well, I'm not sure that you of all people should be discounting Timothy Chalamet. But
since he lives in my townhouse,
he's made guest appearances on these videos.
He has indeed.
Powerfully walking in the background. But that could explain why the movie studio would have greenlit this sequel when they would have been just asking for mockery. But the thing I always go back to that great line in My Favorite Year where Peter O'Toole's character says, I'm not an actor, I'm a movie star. There's a huge difference between the two. Yeah. And if you have a genuine bankable movie star, it's a sequel to Top Gun from the late 1980s is not out of the question. That might be one of the reasons why this thing did so well, because people like a sure thing. The more expensive movies get in the theater, the more they want a sure thing. The more they want to know they're going to enjoy their money's worth. I believe that accounts as much as anything for the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
Is that you know what you're getting.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Tellingly, the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that step out of line at all, that are in any way inventive or original, don't do well in the box office.
Right.
Looking at Thor here. The whole of Thor. The whole of the run of Thor, all of them.
Right. That Eternals thing struggled as well, and that was stepping way out of
one of the reasons. But if you've got a bankable movie star, one of the only ones left, then that your movie might do really well. It might also be that the moviegoers are a little sick of Marvel Cinematic Universe, of superhero movies. And then there's the reason given by the alt-right neckbeard YouTube commentariat. Can't leave them out. they shape a lot of opinion in their own little demi-monde.
Indeed.
And they would say that the reason that this movie did really well is because it's not woke. It's not anti-woke. It's just it leaves all social justice politics completely out of the movie. They're not there at all. It's not like the movie is saying, rah rah Reagan. It's like the first one did. Instead, they just leave it out completely.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's true. That's definitely true. You can see that in a lot of ways. I hate that stuff too. I absolutely hate it when that kind of Twitter politicking is shoved down my throat in a movie theater, where somebody shows me a disaster movie with an action star, and the action star either has to have a wife who's not of the same race, or he has to have gay friends.
Right.
I don't object to either one of those things, but when I can see it being shoved into the movie because I'm supposed to improve, I reject it as much as the neckbeards do. I haven't had a neckbeard since the 60s. But as much as that is a positive, but you can go to this movie and you cannot worry about being woke scolded. Whether you agree with the politics behind wokeism or not, no one likes being woke scolded. No one does.
Right.
That's one. That's the good side of this, of what the claim of those neck-bearded quasi-fascists. They say that this is non-woke, and they praise it for that. They're right, and that might be a positive side of that, but there is a negative side. which is a Jennifer Connelly, who's a very talented actress, is in this movie. I know that will shock you because you certainly did not notice her.
She swings by for a bit, doesn't she?
But that's about it. And
Yeah.
worse than that, when she's in the movie, she's basically a pet. She is subhuman. She doesn't just fail the Bechdel test. She doesn't know what the Bechdel test is. So there are ways you can overcompensate. I think the movie does it about as inoffensively.
Yeah.
You could do that, but you're definitely going to notice it. If you go in looking for, a current year woke vetted movie, you're not going to get that in this movie. And if that's a deal breaker for you, you should know that ahead of time. But I can't imagine that anyone who wants that would pick up the DVD of Top Gun.
Right. I would argue at the outset, she bests him at the bar, so to speak. So they give her a little something. It's not much, but at least it could. I mean, I would argue it could have been worse.
What was the tone of that scene? What was the tone? We don't want to get spoilers here, but what was the tone of that scene? The tone of that scene was not that she bests him in a bar. Yeah. It was the exact tone that you give to your dog when they do something remarkably human, where you look at them and say, "Oh, look at you! You think you're people." I could swear I thought someone was going to say that to Jennifer Connelly. "Oh, people." That's the tone I got.
Right. Absolutely.
This is not that kind of a movie. You're looking for the wrong thing if you look for that stuff.
Right. Certainly. Exactly. So
this is drenched in testosterone, just like the first movie was.
Yeah.
Even Val Kilmer coming back, and Val Kilmer is pretty woke when it comes to the Hollywood elite, and he insisted that his character Iceman introduce some softer elements. Talk about state of mind.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Again, blink and you'll miss it. This is mostly about airplanes.
Right.
I went to the first one. You were probably a wee tyke.
I was 17 and hale and hearty and
This is what working in the library system does. Good God!
I'm not Iceman or my Maverick. I'm bookworm.
No. Oh my God! If you were to open your shirt, instead of bristling pecs, you'd have a big stamp saying "de-accessed." No longer wanted for the collection.
Withdrawn.
Withdrawn. With extreme prejudice. Well, I went to see this thing in the theater, and I walked out appalled. Absolutely appalled. I loved how it was done.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally effective piece of filmmaking, but I knew right away why it was done. I knew the effect that it would have, which would be to send thousands of young men to the recruiting office. And it did. It did have that effect.
Did it? I was not aware of that. Okay. Oh boy.
Demographically, overwhelmingly, yeah. And the problem was that we had very few wars to grind them up in at the time. You had to wait for an entirely different PR stimulus to send tens of thousands of young men to the meat grinder of Iran and Iraq with the 9/11 attacks. And that was it was eerie how people watched those attacks in real time and thought this looks like a Bruckheimer movie.
Right.
That's what Top Gun was. But we don't need to drift into politics here on this inaugural feature.
Yes,
no, we don't want to alienate. I was going to say we don't want to alienate our audience, but what's book of the day if it's not a concerted attempt to alienate?
We just need a reaction. We don't care what the quality of the reaction is.
This one thing that I noticed about this movie that really struck me here. I don't want to use a kind of anachronistic hindsight is 2020 lens. Nevertheless, I don't think you can really deny it that the production is just better than the original. The original had eye-popping. It was an eye-popping visual production. But Claudio Miranda is the DP here, is the director of photography, and he just does a better job. I noticed that about a lot of modern movies. Even when I'm sitting there hating them, I'm realizing that they are technically amazing.
Yes.
Even the ones that don't have lots of green screen, they're still technically amazing.
If you're going to this for the flying sequences, and a fair amount are, I'm sure you will get your money's worth.
You will get your money's worth. I mean, yes. And there's also, you mentioned Clancy in your opening. There's Clancy-esque skullduggery involved.
Oh, certainly.
And you will genuinely wonder the big question hanging over this movie. Again, we'll do a movie every week that we'll pull from the collection in the library, but
Certainly.
we don't want to spoil anything for anybody. But you already know when you go into this, since you were a tiny little baby when this movie when the prequel came out, you'll know already that one of the questions hanging over this movie is, does Maverick die? And ordinarily you would think, well, Tom Cruise, movie star, obviously he doesn't. And the movie very effectively makes you forget that. The high tense action sequences, one sort of at the beginning of the movie and then the big set piece thing at the end.
Right.
You will wonder. You will genuinely be on the edge of your seat. That's very good movie making.
That set piece you're talking about. Yeah.
Joe Kosinski is the director here.
Right.
And he does a very good job here. This is what you get if you sign up for Tom Cruise. Right? He's bringing a multi-million-dollar machinery to your movie set. You could be Joe Kosinski, you could be Sam Peckinpah. You can't tell Tom Cruise what to do. And you can't tell him this is what the scene is going to do. He'll look at it and he'll decide whether or not it works well for him. And it does work well for him. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Yeah. What director would argue with him? He clearly knows what he's doing.
When you get a star who has TM with a circle after their name,
you wouldn't have to do it if the star was questionable, if there were as many strikes as hits. Bruce Willis, for example. But who's going to argue with Tom Cruise? Yeah. That's the whole thing about being a movie star. That's the whole thing about John Wayne or Clint Eastwood in his heyday, or Betty Davis, God help us all, or Katharine Hepburn after 4 Oscars.
Sure,
she knows what she's doing.
Certainly,
right? So, I mean, Katharine Hepburn's later movies don't advance that, but we can talk about that some other time. I'm sure you don't have them in the library system.
A fair amount. A fair amount.
Well,
you'd be surprised.
You're the last library in the world that has a copy of Mrs. Delafield Wants to Marry.
Ooh, that might be an interlibrary loan, Steve.
3 people saw it. Interlibrary loan from hell. 3 people saw it.
We'll go anywhere.
And since 2 of those people were Beagles, I'm the only one still alive.
I heard the Beagles loved it.
I'm the only person in the world left who could talk for an hour about Mrs. Delafield Wants to Marry. But we won't.
See you next Friday, Steve.
I know. I really am trying to drive away our viewers. And we should point out that this movie thing that we're doing, we started off with Top Gun Maverick to underscore that this is not some chintzy thing where we need the movie to be an adaptation of a book.
No, certainly not.
But I also want to stress that this is not us abandoning kids' books, which we usually do on Friday. It's true that my humble producer and I both viscerally hate small children. But we realize that the children's book section is popular. And
that's why I had 5 to underscore, just to reaffirm. It's true. I do hate them.
But the miserable little ankle biters will have their books talked about.
They will indeed.
We'll work it in.
We do.
We'll 5 days a week to play with. We'll work it in somehow.
Fantastic.
What were your thoughts on Top Gun Maverick? This is not the same thing as in our book palavering, where you often haven't read the book.
Well,
no fault to you. It's just I'm a critic who reads everything. But you watched the movie. What did you think?
So,
your juicy, sexy 17-year-old.
I had to, fan my shirt. Yes. No, I went into it kind of grinding my teeth because even at 17, I despised the original Top Gun. I said, and I had the same reaction. I said, this is a recruitment film. That's a beautifully produced recruitment film. And I was of the age where recruiters were like, say, you look like someone who's going to need direction. So
I would say that I was too, but no one would believe it.
So I certainly came to this with a bone to pick, and I came away with a relatively cheery atmosphere. I was cheerful when it was all over.
Okay, given that, I have a question for you. So I get to question you. So we're learning as we go along here with this. It's our first episode of Movie of the Week. Given that fact, that you came out of the second one, you didn't walk out of it because you were like a beach whale on your couch.
I was in my living room.
You all say that. We say, I walked out of the movie theater and we haven't moved in 10 years. But so you finished the second movie, Maverick, Top Gun Maverick, and you had a good time. You liked it. My question is, did it retroactively renovate any of your reactions to Top Gun? I'm not saying did it make you want to see it again, but did you look back and think, okay, well, I've calmed down some now, and I can look at some of the ways that original movie was affected.
I
Anything
think
like that at all?
So at 17, I already, being of the, oh God, dare I say this? I'll say it, of the MTV generation, I immediately started to recoil at a young age at that fast cut kind of in your face type of filmmaking. So I didn't, and I will say now looking back on it and knowing the director being Tony Scott, that's his thing. And there's an artistry to that too, I suppose. I hate it less. Yes.
Yeah,
and
neither one of us is big fans of that. But
yeah,
you're right. Grudgingly, there is an artistry to that.
Yeah. So it's manipulative. It's absolutely manipulative. And but I suspect those who are going to these movies are in the mood to be manipulated. So
they're really in the mood to be manipulated by something that isn't casting a spell or throwing a hammer.
Yeah, absolutely.
But did you feel that this second movie was less manipulative?
I did.
I
did for less manipulative in that it felt like an old movie. It felt like this, the structure, the plot structure, the way the characters spoke, the way they were presented. And I was like, this could have been made in 55. This could be John Wayne's Flying Tight, And so with that, I will say, I miss this kind of movie.
So in a way, a part of why you enjoyed it was because you weren't hoodwinked by it in a way that you worried that the 1980s movie was hoodwinking people.
That's exactly right. That's
here you're watching a movie.
Yep. Yes. Exactly.
I wonder then if Top Gun Maverick has had anything like the same effect on recruitment. I don't think we'd ever know.
Yeah. We're not giving those numbers here at
back in the late 1980s. The powers that rule us, the military, especially the civilian government, were accountable to us. You could go to the military and say, "Hey, did your recruitment figures go up as a result of this movie?"
Certainly. And
we have just gradually accepted that is absolutely not true anymore. That if you walked into a recruiting office and asked that, you'd be shot dead. We just gradually accepted that is the case. and probably not coincidentally, as we've accepted that is not the case, the Pentagon's budget has gone up by 550,000%.
Right. Absolutely.
They made a paltry couple of billion.
Yeah.
The first Top Gun came out. Now they're a couple of $1 trillion.
Right. And we must not lose sight of the fact that drones and AI probably won't be watching Top Gun Maverick, and they're available as we speak. So there's that element of warfare too.
I employ one in Cedarburg just to keep an eye on you. I don't trust you as far as I can throw you.
It's a really good time to end the show. So there it is, folks.
Concerned viewers calling in and saying, "Are you two really starting to hate each other? Because I'm starting to like the show." And we can respond with the God's honest truth. We're not starting to hate each other. We started out hating each other.
Yes, it was our story. Our story arc is very flat. Well, there it is, folks. The first movie of the week, CPL movie of the week. And it's fun, and I also miss when they'd have like TV movies of the week, which Betty Davis would show up on occasion. So gals gotta eat. So there we are. Let us know what you think of this format. We would be delighted to hear from you. And as always, that is Steve Donoghue in Boston, who reads books and watches movies.
I do. And I want to stress again, I have credentials as a movie critic.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, they're not nearly as extensive as my credentials with books, but still.
CPL now has our own Vincent Canby, our own Pauline Kael. I love all of this.
You're talking about the greats, the school of the greats that don't exist anymore.
Right. Well, here we are. I trotted one out today. As always, we are brought to you Monday through Friday as a service of CPL Radio and made possible by the friends of Cedarburg Public Library in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. Oh, Steve has something to add.
True story. They're all guilty of big hair and parachute pants.
Actually, you're right. Mm-hmm. I've seen it.
Let's check the photo albums, folks. Don't let them deny the past.
Oh, the 80s. So many blow dryers. Anyway, we will be back. Take care, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Steve.